So hello and welcome. Today we are covering another new standard and the last standard after we completed attribute standards, and now this is the last standard of all the performance standard, which is standard 2600, which is regarding communicating the acceptance of risk. So let's start with our customary practice of asking some interesting questions, and then while we review this standard, we'll get responses to those questions. Does the Chief Audit Executive hold the responsibility to resolve the risk? Why reviewing existing risk management policies are useful for Chief Audit Executive? What is organization's view of tolerance? Is the ongoing monitoring process the only way a Chief Audit Executive identifies unacceptable risk? If you are new to my videos, this is Tausif Mushtaq, an audit strategist, control specialist, and board advisor with over 2 decades of experience in governance, assurance, risk and controls, fraud examinations, and forensic reviews. The objective of my videos on the audit and assurance series is to promote the internal audit profession in its basic spirit, whereby the internal auditors having a clear understanding of the standards and international professional practices framework overall, so they can contribute to achieve the mission of internal audit. The mission of internal audit is defined by the Institute of Internal Auditors, which is to enhance and protect organizational value by providing risk-based and objective assurance, advice, and insight. So the basic requirement of standard 2600, communicating the acceptance of risk, is when the Chief Audit Executive concludes that management has accepted a level of risk that may be unacceptable to the organization, the Chief Audit Executive must discuss the matter with senior management. If Chief Audit Executive determines that the matter has not been resolved, the Chief Audit Executive must communicate the matter to the board. So as per interpretation, the identification of risk accepted by management may be observed through an assurance or consulting engagement, monitoring progress, or on action taken by the management as a result of prior engagement or other means. It is not the responsibility of the Chief Audit Executive to resolve the risk. So let's understand the requirement of the standard by reviewing the implementation guide. To be successful in implementing this standard, the Chief Audit Executive must first understand the organization's view of tolerance for various types of organizational risk, means acceptable level of risk, and risk management policy. So what is an acceptable level of risk? Organizations vary by how much and what types of risk they consider acceptable. For example, some organizations may accept higher levels of financial risk, taking actions such as expanding into a new geography with an unstable government, or making a material investment in an exciting new product that has a relatively small probability of success but high reward if successful. Other organizations are more averse to such financial risk, avoiding such situations. Further, organizations consider different factors in determining the level of acceptable risk. For example, the potential impact and likelihood of the risk event, the vulnerability of the organization, and the length of time it takes management to resolve an unacceptable risk. So what is a risk management policy? If the organization has a formal risk management policy, which may include a risk acceptance process, so it is important for Chief Audit Executive and internal audit activity to understand it. As required by Standard 2500, the Chief Audit Executive also must establish and maintain a system for monitoring the disposition of the results of internal audits. It is also helpful for the Chief Audit Executive to know how higher risk issues are typically communicated within the organization. Existing policies may define a preferred communication approach. For example, an organization's risk management policy may discuss timeliness, a hierarchy of reporting, and similar considerations. In monitoring the disposition of the results and the corrective actions taken by the management, the chief audit executive may become aware of high risk observations that are not timely corrected or may represent more risk or higher risk than the organizations would normally tolerate and are therefore unacceptable to the organization. However, the ongoing monitoring process is not the only way a chief audit executive identifies unacceptable risk. An effective CAE employs several ways to stay abreast of organizational risk. For example, the chief audit executive may receive information from members of the internal audit activity regarding significant risk they have identified during their assurance or consulting engagements. Or the organization may employ an enterprise risk management process to identify and monitor significant risk, and the chief audit executive may be involved with that process. Further, by building and maintaining a collaborative, communicative network with the management, the chief audit executive may become aware of an emerging risk area in the organization. The chief audit executives also strive to keep up with the industry trends and regulatory changes to help them recognize potential and emerging risks. Continuing with the CA monitoring process, regardless of how the unacceptable risk is identified, if the chief audit executive recognizes the risk as being at such a high level that the organization would normally not tolerate it, and if the chief audit executive believes that the risk is not being mitigated to an acceptable level, then he or she is required to communicate the situation to senior management. Prior to such a communication, the chief audit executive typically discusses the issue with the members of the management responsible for the risk areas. So it's better to have a discussion with the process owner beforehand, which is the reason is to share concerns, understand management's perspective, and reach an agreed path to resolve the risk. However, if such an agreement isn't reached, and there is a difference of opinion probably, then the chief audit executive must escalate the concern to senior management. And after a similar discussion with the senior management, if the risk remains unresolved, then the chief audit executive must communicate the issue to the board. So this is how the escalation process works. It is then the board's decision how to address the concern with the management. Chief audit executive communication. How, when, and to whom? The chief audit executive uses judgment to determine how best and how quickly to communicate such matters to whom, based on the issue's nature, urgency, potential ramifications, and any policies that may be in place. For example, should the General Counsel be consulted, such as when a law or regulation may have been violated? And should the risk be communicated in private to a senior executive or in a cross-functional meeting with many subject matter specialists in attendance? So let's see what documentation is required to demonstrate conformance with this standard. Evidence of conformance could be found in minutes of meetings where a significant risk issue was discussed with the executive management team, the board, or a risk committee. If the chief audit executive communicates the unacceptable risk situation through one-on-one meetings or during a private session, a memo to file can be used to document the steps taken to alert management and the board. Also, an indirect indication of conformance is a policy in the internal audit manual that describes the requirements of this standard and the organization's reporting process. So thank you so much for staying with me, liking my videos. Please keep sharing my videos also and subscribe the channel so other people may get benefit from the videos. Thank you so much.